Hey, Pretty Girl Club, welcome back to the Social Climbing series. I am going to be bulk recording all this week, so if there's anything in particular you want me to talk about, be sure to comment down below. But I want to talk about how us Exoticals can maintain our social status and our cultural capital. One thing that is special about Exoticals is we have proximity to Blackness, but we also have proximity away from Blackness as well. So we are able to relate to people outside of the Black community, whether it's based on how you look. So you might be monoracial, but maybe you look mixed race or something, or maybe you actually are mixed race. A part of cultural capital means that you have a fluid identity. So you have the ability to jump in and out of Blackness at will, whereas other people, I notice some people on YouTube, they speak on their own Blackness as if they feel like it's a cage that traps them. I've also noticed some generational curses or like generational inferiority complexes that get passed down through Black families that I do not want to associate with. For example, the talking point that you have to work twice as hard to get half as much. That sounds like an extremely toxic inferiority complex. I'm glad that my family did not say stuff like that to me. And I've had some people on YouTube try to make fun of me for not knowing everything about Black culture or for not knowing all the movies and all the references and stuff. And it's like, well, I didn't grow up monocultural. So of course I'm not going to know every cultural reference. I'm actually glad that I don't know every cultural reference, because for every reference that I don't know in relation to like the hood community, I probably know a cultural reference in relation to another ethnicity or another socioeconomic class. So that's an example of cultural capital. It means that you have knowledge and you've been influenced by the media, not just within like Black culture, but also within other cultures. And I'm not saying one is better than the other, honestly. I think that being monocultural is fine as long as you plan to stay in a monocultural space. But generally speaking, if you are in the United States, America is a melting pot. And then especially if you're trying to be upwardly mobile, like you want to become wealthy and stuff, you're definitely going to come across people from different ethnicities. So I think the advantage that we have as Exoticals is we have the Black girl magic, we have the melanin poppin', we're gonna age well. You know, we've got these African roots, but at the same time, we also have, if you're mixed race, you've got some other roots as well. Or maybe your family just looks like people from another community, so it makes you relatable to those people. Like if people are walking up to you and speaking another language, that means that that person felt so comfortable with you. Let's say you're not Hispanic, but somebody's walking up to you speaking Spanish. That person felt so comfortable with you and so safe with you to the point where they were willing to risk public embarrassment by speaking a foreign language to you in public without asking your permission. If that's not a sign of acceptance, if that's not a sign of somebody feeling like you're one of them, I don't know what is. And maybe I'll do a video on that. How to know if you're accepted by other communities. Well, actually, I can talk about it right now. Number one, members of that community speak to you in that language. Number two, members of that community want you to date within their community. I've seen a lot of women on here who have struggled a lot with rejection. They feel like they don't fit into their own community, and they also feel like they don't fit into other communities. And I'm sorry to hear that. But when it comes to the Exoticals, I really do feel like because people see proximity to you, they see your proximity to non-blackness. That is a big difference between women who are considered Exoticals versus unambiguous women. The difference is that you have white people saying, you look like my cousin, or Hispanic people saying, you look like my cousin. Or you got a Filipino person saying, hey, we're the same complexion. You're sharing foundation shades with a girl at your school who's a Pacific Islander. That is not the average experience of someone who's monoracial and unambiguous. You can't share foundation shades. You can't share hair products. You're not sharing family members. Like your family members don't look like this other person. So I think that there is a familiarity there, and that is a form of cultural capital. So I'm not trying to put it on a hierarchy. I'm not saying that unambiguous women can't have cultural capital. I'm just saying that, I'm speaking from my perspective and based on my audience. So that is our cultural capital. It's the fact that we are multifaceted. And if you notice, a lot of women in level up spaces, a lot of the women in Black level up spaces, they're promoting multiculturalism now. They're promoting it because they realize multiculturalism is the future. So that means that you already have an advantage if you look multicultural. Yes, there is a stereotype of looking multicultural. Generally speaking, it's the quote unquote light skin or light brown type of complexion, type 1, 2, and 3 hair. Maybe you have keener features, maybe you have lighter eyes or something. So if you already look like a melting pot, if you look like your family is a melting pot, that's already an advantage right there. And some people, they try to say that that's an ism, colorism, texturism, or featureism. An ism is when they're putting down someone that's like dark skinned, or they're putting down someone based on having 4C hair. That's an ism. But simply being willing to talk to someone or having an easier time becoming friends with someone because they look like you, that's not racism, because you're not disparaging anyone else. Having a friendship, that's not a civil right. So no, if a Hispanic person wants to be friends with me because they feel like I look more like them, that's not them being racist against anyone else. But your phenotype in and of itself is already a form of cultural capital, which is why we see the obsession with bundles. By the way, I just figured out yesterday that the Burmese, the Burmese curly, I was talking about how I don't really know about the bundles and everything. So I actually went to the beauty supply store and I just found out that the Burmese blends so well with my hair. But people on the internet, they told me Burmese was type 2. It was not type 2 hair because I just went into the beauty supply store and it blended with my hair, blended with my frizz and everything. But if you naturally have a type 3 hair texture, for example, that is a form of cultural capital because what it means is other cultures already have that feature. By the way, I'm not sure if anybody has noticed, but as far as cultural capital, having type 3 hair gives you cultural capital because you're associated with Brazilian people. You know how they buy the Brazilian hair. Malaysian people, you know how they buy Malaysian hair. Burmese people, I believe it's now called Myanmar. I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right, but it's right next to Laos, and I think it's next to China as well. So that's a form of cultural capital, and you're not even realizing it. Your actual hair texture that's growing out of your head is a form of cultural capital because you fit in with people from all those groups. Whatever hair texture weave blends in with your type 3 hair, that's the type of cultural capital you have. So in my case, now that I found out that my hair texture is associated with people from some Asian communities, now I understand why in the past sometimes people would think I was Blasian. I never understood it before, but now that I've actually looked at what a Burmese person is, now I understand. So let's say you're being associated with the Blasian phenotype, that's a form of cultural capital. Do you know how many Asian people live in the United States? That's just, the amount of people that you have closer proximity and access to is incredible. If you have maybe a phenotype that kind of resembles that, or maybe your actual background is similar to that, like if you're Caribbean, I know that a lot of people have like Indian ancestry, which is South Asian, by the way. So that's an opportunity for you to go and interact in those places. You can go interact in those stores. You may not have to worry as much about being ostracized because your hair already looks like that, or maybe your skin, or maybe your face, your nose, or whatever already looks like that. That's a form of cultural capital. It's actually a social privilege that you have when you enter into another culture. This is also why sometimes in interracial relationships, I don't really call it interracial if the person is mixed, but a lot of times why you will see, like, let's say it's a white guy and he goes for like a biracial black and white girl. Well, it's because she already has a form of cultural capital. She already relates to him in a way because she has a parent that's the same race. So whenever I use that phrase, I'm talking about how relatable you are to others. That's also why I talk about skin complexion as well. If you're in the Fenty, 200s, 300s, somewhere in this kind of caramely or light-skinned type of range, then you've got people of all different backgrounds all over the world who can relate to your skin tone. So you don't have to try to seek out a specific makeup artist of a specific tone who knows how to work with your particular skin tone because it's so rare. So part of the cultural capital is you're able to blend in. You're fluid. You can hop in and out of the Hispanic makeup artist, but like you can just go down to Ulta right now and just get your makeup done and it's no problem. Having a fluid identity is a form of social currency in and of itself. That's why you hear people say, oh, I went to an Ivy League school. Oh, well, I'm from the suburbs. Why are they saying that? Because they want you to know what cultures they've participated in. They want you to know what culture they're familiar with. That's why they're bringing it up. Oh, well, I only date white men. I only date foreign men. I only date millionaires. Well, they're saying that because they want you to know what dating culture they participate in. Anytime someone starts talking about their background, they're telling you what cultures they've been a part of. They're telling you what their biases are, and everybody has biases, by the way. So, like, even when I talk about my background, I have no problem sharing my biases because who cares? Like, I can't help where I came from. Oh, and that's another thing too. Have you ever noticed that people try to guilt trip you if you want to change your identity? So, like, let's say you've always been a one-dimensional, boring person, and now you don't want to be boring anymore. Now you want to, like, have a fluid identity. So, for example, let's talk about weight loss. That's a good one. Maybe you grew up obese, you were always big, you were always the fat funny girl, and now you want to have a fluid identity, which means you want to go from fat to skinny. So you don't want to identify as the fat girl anymore. You want to change your identity, and you're going to have to be fluid, which means you have to be open-minded. The main part of having a fluid identity is having this open-mindedness about you. Have you ever noticed the people who are monocultural, they will say comments like, Black people don't go hiking, Black people can't play lacrosse, Black people don't sing opera, Black people don't do this, we don't do that, we can't go out in the rain, I can't get my hair wet, I can't take off my wig in public, I have to only wear human hair and a lace front that's like a bust down. So they have all these random rules. Why? Well, they're not fluid, they're rigid. They have a rigid identity. That's the opposite of a fluid identity. It's a rigid identity. By the way, this is random, but have you ever had Black women make fun of your wig and say that your wig looks ratchet or it looks cheap and synthetic? But then they have that thing called hard wig, soft life. So it's like, wait, sis, if you're saying that she has on a hard wig, you're basically admitting that she hangs out with white people. You're admitting that she doesn't really have a lot of Black friends. That's the whole joke, is that her wig looks bad because she has no Black friends. She doesn't hang out with Black people. But then behind closed doors, you have those same women who are trying to figure out social strategies on how to fit in with other cultures. So that's an example of like having an advantage as an exotical. I would say, generally speaking, if you feel like you don't fit in one particular ethnic group, it's because you probably fit in another ethnic group. And another thing too, it's not all about ethnicity. There's also a such thing as like geographical culture. So Southern culture versus like West Coast versus East Coast versus like Mexican culture. Like it can be based on your nationality. So Mexico versus like Nigeria. So there are literally thousands of different cultures and subcultures. So the question is, which one do you want to be a part of? Which culture do you want to be a pretty girl in? Which culture do you want to have your pedestal in? Because a lot of people, they talk shit and they say, oh, well, she's just being put on a pedestal. Put on a pedestal by who? Who's putting her on that pedestal? Is it men? Is it women? Is it Black people, white people, Hollywood? Because whoever you get jealous over, whoever's pedestal you're jealous of, that means you want to be in that culture. So I see a lot of women, they're jealous of like celebrities, and that's why they make videos talking shit. Okay, so that woman, she wants to be accepted in celebrity culture. She wants that social status. She wants to feel like she fits in. And there's nothing wrong with that. It just means that you have to create like a social climbing plan for yourself. So I can use myself as an example. So like what kind of cultural capital do I want to have? So number one is I enjoy having kind of this suburban kind of nerdy background about myself. I like that about myself. So I like to emphasize that. So the way I emphasize it is I keep on reading even more. Or maybe I will wear something that looks a little bit dorky or a little bit nerdy. Other people may not understand it, but that's because they're not a part of nerd culture. So I don't really need them to understand it. They're not my audience. You know how they talk about like hypergamy? And then you have these dusty men coming in and saying, oh, well, you're never going to get that. It's like, okay, you're not the core audience that they're trying to attract anyway. So having a fluid identity, having cultural capital, it's all about attracting the type of attention you want. And it's also about curating an image for yourself, kind of curating other people's perception of you. I know you can't control it, but basically you're curating the image that you want to portray of yourself. So the way you do that, privilege is basically positive stereotypes. So what you're doing is you're saying, okay, I want to be associated with the positive stereotypes of being a nerd. And I don't want to be associated with the negative stereotypes of being a nerd. So the negative stereotypes would be like being antisocial, having bad acne is a stereotype I think of, having like high water pants, so I'm not going to fit the negative stereotypes of a nerd, but I want to play into the positive stereotypes of being a nerd, like being smart, being articulate, being well read, being like educated. Another form of cultural capital that I want to have is kind of being this bougie, spoiled, borderline conceited. Stacey Dash is popping up in my head right now. Beyonce is popping up in my head. Nicki Minaj is popping up in my head. So this unattainable, like untouchable type of vibe, I actually enjoy that cultural capital. I love that because guess what? Snobs have boundaries. So, yes, of course, there are negative stereotypes with being a snob, but the positives outweigh the negative for me personally because I don't want to be known as, oh, I have no boundary, like being down to earth. Have you ever noticed that sometimes people want you to prove how down you are? They want you to prove you're down to earth by suffering alongside them. No, I don't want to be associated with suffering. Snobs, you don't associate snobs and bougie women with suffering and trauma and being underprivileged and being chosen last. You don't associate them with that. So that's actually a form of cultural capital to me because it's helping me to repel this victim mindset or kind of this victim narrative or kind of like this victim. I just don't feel like that's a form of social status for me. Being a victim is not a form of social status. I do not view that as a form of cultural capital because I don't want to be a part of victim culture. I don't want to be a part of that. I'd rather be a part of like high society, if that makes sense. If I had to choose between quote unquote high society and then like victim culture or the ones that you do charity work for, I'd rather be a part of the high society, even if I have to work hard, even if I have to like try to climb my way up there. I have to climb the ladder or I have to learn all this new stuff. That's fine because that's a culture where I would like to have capital in. Another one for me is actual wealth. The word capital, that also means like money. So that's another part of cultural capital that I want to have for myself. I hope every exotical is seeking after wealth. This is why I tell you guys to start your own channels. By the way, last time I just checked the other day, there are around 160 exotical channels right now, or channels using exotical like in their tags or in their titles. Some of them may be hate channels, but that's really good. That at this point, there are over 100 of you guys who have decided to make your own YouTube channel, get your own passive income. You already have privilege on social media. Other people say all the time that they watch exoticals. Most celebrities are exoticals in the Black community. Most celebrities are definitely exoticals. A lot of the beauty standard in the natural hair community, the beauty community, the vlogger community, and all that, a lot of them are exoticals, so you already have an advantage there. And then you can also make content. You can make faceless content. You don't even have to show yourself. That's another form of cultural capital. You have capital in terms of social media. So you're using social media to like build your finances up. I mean, that's how I quit my accounting job, was by doing this. I edit in the mornings and then I record in the afternoon. And with every video that I make, my YouTube channel is supposed to be like a library. So when you first come across my channel, you're going to see 1,000 videos. And I did it like that on purpose because I created my channel so it's bingeable. So I want people to, that's a part of my capital as a content creator. My capital is that I made over 1,000 videos. It's very difficult to argue with 1,000 videos. Do you know how many stones? I leave no stone left unturned on this YouTube channel. I mean, I will try to hit every angle, every nuance. If I make one video, I'll try to come back and balance it out with another video. I will make an entire series kind of continuing the last thing I talked about. So that's a form of capital because it makes this channel stand out on an intellectual level. So that's why some people are so threatened by the exotical space, because even though this channel is small, this channel is technically considered small. I don't know why. I mean, look how threatened people are. When the biggest exotical channel is only like 30,000 subscribers, imagine once we get to 100,000 or 500,000. But the reason I'm threatening is because I created intellectual capital by creating so many videos. I mean, I made more videos than a lot of my detractors. So it's very difficult for them to argue against our talking points because any argument they made, I probably addressed it already. in one of my 1,000 videos. So I haven't seen not one person try to argue with the Exoticals who has watched more than 10% of my content. Usually when people talk against the Exoticals, it's because they watched a very small percentage of videos. So they probably watched one or two videos. They don't understand our language. They don't understand like our little culture that we have here. So then they just go and they make an idiotic video that's inaccurate. And then they wonder why they can't build a platform. It's because they have no cultural capital on YouTube. They don't have any social status. It's like a form of social status. It's a form of like popularity. Popularity is cultural capital for sure. It depends on where you want to be popular. So for those of you who care about popularity, I care about that as well. You know, I like a little bit of clout. So the question is, where do you want to be popular? Do you want to be a popular author? Maybe you want to create a fashion line and you want to have a popular like clothing brand. Maybe you want to have a YouTube channel or a podcast or something. Those are all different forms of cultural capital. But what do you ladies think? Let me know in the comment section and I'll talk to you next time. Stay pretty, ladies.